But the other thing is that we have oral history students, graduate students and undergraduates who are on hand and would like the opportunity to interview you, if you would like to be interviewed, about the moment that we're in now, what this moment means to us, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the African American Studies program, what it means to you personally, individually. Maybe you're an alumni, maybe you're a student and you want to talk about your hopes and aspirations for your future career based upon what you're learning in African American Studies or at UF. So we encourage you to sign up right outside the front door again. There are students prepared to sit down and record your story, to tell your story from your perspective. So right now, I'm just going to turn the panel over, or turn the microphone over to my dear colleague, Dr. Vincent Adejumo, Senior Lecturer, African American Studies Program, University of Florida. And I'll just say this about Dr. Adejumo. He also, if you look at the back of your program, you'll notice that he was a member of the Ronald C. Foreman Jr. Symposium Committee. And what we're doing today, what we'll be doing tomorrow, took a lot of organizing work. And Dr. Vincent was a key component and a key organizer and a key comrade in really making this day happen. So please give it up for him.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. Just want to say that it is a pleasure being here today. As I look out into the crowd, it's rather sparse, but it's okay because we got the whole thing on tape, and that's all we need. So with this session, we're gonna have we've been having some real talk from the time that this symposium has started, but we're going to have some really talk. And I heard the elder sister say, that she, that she can't hold it in. Whatever she got to say is the truth. That's what we're going to do. We got to have some truth telling. So today, what we're here to accomplish is student activism. Student activism. And the thing about student activism is that, especially here at the University of Florida, and I'll often hear Dr. Patricia Hilliard-Nunn say this and others, that nothing came to this university pertaining to African Americans without struggle. Nothing came to this university pertaining to African Americans without struggle. And that is one thing that has really been lost upon our current student population today. They see the shiny toys, they see the this and the that, and they think they've made it. But I often have to remind them, well, first of all, if you look at just the numbers, and I'm just gonna throw out some facts out there, because we're here for the truth. Well, if you look at it, if you really think about it, in 1970, it was only 1.5% of African Americans, students at this university, right? 1.5%. So if you fast forward it to 2019, and a lot of people scrunch up when you say this, but we got to tell the truth, the percentage has only grown to 5.7%. So you're talking about a less than 1% growth from 1970 to 2020. We're talking about a less than 1% growth, less than 1% growth per decade. You see what I'm saying? 1970 to 2020. And you look particularly at the numbers. The number of undergraduate currently at the University of Florida is 34,541. I got the statistics now. This is UF main campus, 34,541. Of those 34,541, only 2,029 are blacks. Now let's break it down by gender. Only 728 are males. Only 1,300 are females. Now let's rewind it back to 2007. 2,283 were females, 1,284 were males. Again, 728 black males at the University of Florida currently today seeking an undergraduate degree. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. This is a crisis, and I want to make sure you get that on tape. This is a crisis. And the only way that we're going to move things forward is to have not only this symposium, but this particular exercise. Because so not only what we're going to do today is get to the activism that happened in the past, but we're also going to talk about some solutions moving forth. And we're going to have interaction from the crowd, because it just doesn't make any sense that our numbers have dwindled that much. And so before long, you're gonna find a situation, the only black students walking around this campus pursuing an undergraduate degree are the athletes. If you don't get it together, if you don't understand what's going on, if you don't recapture, so to speak, and I tell my students all the time, you know, some of them out here, Destiny, Kiara, some of them in the past, William, Wallace, Chris, and we'll get to that. You know, we don't expect you to be a Malcolm X or a Sada Shakur, but what we do expect for you is to be aware. And so if you as students are not aware just of that one fact and the many other things that are still going on campus that requires attention and direct action, then when you do ask for anything further, your voice is not going to be paid attention to much. Hey, look around this room. How many folk are here? How many students are here first and foremost? And how many students are here that are not here just for extra credit? Very sparse. So this is the thing. So we need to set the tone. We need to set the mood. You know, because we got to have some real talk in here, or continue the real talk. And so this is where our panelists come in. They're going to give their story individually as far as how the program has helped them during their time as a student, and continues to help them in life. And then we're going to have a little discussion amongst ourselves, and then after that, we're going to get to the solutions to finish up the exercise that we have here. So without further ado, you've heard me talk enough, and now let's start it off with Mr. William, and we're going to come on down the line.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me? All right, excellent. My name is William Walker. I graduated, what was it, 2017? 2016? Mm-hmm. Graduated? A while ago. Graduated a while ago from African American Studies program. What is this program meant to me? I've had that question asked to me a couple times, and truthfully, I would like to start off by specifically saying to Dr. Hilliard Nunn, Dr. Adejumo, and Ms. Burney, sorry. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I remember my sophomore year, I was the only black student in my classroom in one of the STEM fields. I'm not going to point them out specifically, but I felt very isolated. And then my grandfather had passed away, really close to me, raised me as his own son when my dad left. I didn't want to continue college anymore. I wanted to go home, do the funeral proceedings, and just drift away. But I remember Dr. Hilliard Nunn pushed me to continue on to honor his memory. Excuse me. And moving from there, met Dr. Adejumo, and really pushed me in class to always do better. This paper, you can do better than this. Every time after class, I would go to the office, have conversations with Ms. Burney, long conversations about what was going on, venting, decompressing about the state of the climate that we were undergoing. And it turned into this family away from home. And so a lot of the work that I ended up doing for the program was that thank you not only as a thank you to y'all, but also as an understanding that there are students who are going to come after me that are going to need this kind of support that I needed from this program. And I wanted to make sure that the program not only survived, but thrived for them and try to catch as many students who could slip through the cracks as possible, like I almost did. So again, thank you. And because of y'all, I am graduating from Auburn University with my master's degree in higher education administration. And I was accepted for the PhD program as well. And a lot of, and so all of my work that I do through the program, my research in the future is always and shall always be Afrocentric and how to help African American individuals through higher education. So again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
For those of you that don't know, my name is Sharon Burney, and up until last year, I worked in the African American Studies program as a program assistant for over 15 years, 20 years working at the University of Florida. Before that, way before these guys, I was a student here at UF. So long ago, Joel Buchanan was my first financial aid counselor. And Dean Willie Robinson made a great impact in my life. Dean Shaw was the reason the first piece of literature ever written was published, thanks to him. He might not remember that when he was Dean of Minority Affairs. And Dr. Mildred Hill-Lubin was one of my first professors here. She is emeritus, posthumously, but she's an emeritus professor in English, she was. Had a great impact on me as a student. Made me have my first student tears, because I thought I could write, and then she gave me my paper back. And I sat in class, I'm not gonna lie, I cried because I couldn't even see the writing, because there was so much red on it. But then, you know, fast forward some years, and she was in the front row of some of my poetry readings, edging me on. I'll never forget that. Alma Johnson, who, if you went to the IBC, she was always there. And Dr. William Simmons, who we talked about earlier, who was there for so many years and is such an advocate. We had so many advocates for us on campus. They influenced me. And then I was fortunate enough, and then I was always in protest. So like I said, I'm surprised they gave me the microphone, but you're gonna get what you're gonna get. I don't want us to forget a couple of things, and then I was fortunate enough to come into African American Studies and work there with William Conwell, who's sitting there, and his amazing wife, Dr. Faye Harrison, and Marilyn Thomas Houston, and Patricia Hilliard Nunn. We had some amazing scholars come through it. Tazagi Shange walked through the door. It was here as a joint appointment with Women's Studies, and as a poet, my heart fell on the ground, and I didn't want to look like a groupie, but I felt like one. And most people don't know that she was a joint appointment with African American Studies for a couple of years. And was able to build something like Mary McLeod Bethune said, money was the least of ours, but we were able to build something out of nothing. We were able to build something really, really strong, and it came with a lot of sacrifice for a lot of people. And Dr. Ronald Foreman, who for 30 years was at the helm of this, so we don't ever forget that name. But there are a lot of people whose faces and names that you're going to forget, who did a lot of the groundwork for us so that we could be here, so you can have these fancy buildings. But they labored, and they labored late, and they labored early, and they didn't get any applause, and they didn't get any accolades, and they didn't get any money for what they did. But they did it and they continued to do it. And so much of my job description had nothing to do with the job I did on behalf of University of Florida, but I did it for our students. And I will continue, and they know I'm just a phone call away, and they call me all the time, trust I know. But I want to thank Agnes Leslie, who was one of my first instructors here. She probably don't remember that. I look around, I say thank you to so many of you who did the work before me, and I hope I can make you a little bit proud of whatever I'm able to continue on.
Speaking and sitting down, just get hello. My name's Wallace. My friends call me Wally. I'm from Gainesville, Florida. Shout out to Gainesville. Yeah, give it up. Okay, I appreciate that. I was a student here. That was exciting. So I have a lot of emotions standing up here. At first, when I was coming back, I thought I had to put up with so much here at the University of Florida. But reflecting on this program and my instructors, I was just overwhelmed with a lot of emotion, a lot of thankfulness, a lot of gratefulness, and I'm just gonna reflect. Thank you. Always looking out. So I'm just gonna reflect on my journey as an activist here, what brought me here, and my orientation. So I'm an activist, organizer, comedian, and most importantly, I'm Black. Currently, I'm an organizer for the Sunrise Movement. We're a youth movement working to stop climate change. If you heard of the Green New Deal, we're the reason you heard about it. But before that, I was a transfer student. And the first class I took was mentoring at risk youth with Dr. Adejumo in summer B of 2016. Like I said, I'd just like to talk to you about how this program helped me develop as a semi-functional organizer and human being. It was really hard thinking back to pinpoint exactly where my childhood innocence was taken away. Because of oppression and poverty, I knew it came quickly, but I remember vividly sitting by the TV and watching the news in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana. And I remember people that looked like me were drowning. I remember them crying out for help. I remember their tears. And I remember how politicians did nothing. How people in the news media called them names like thugs. And in that moment, even at a young age, I was filled with compassion and empathy. And I knew I wanted to help change the way things were going for people that looked like me and people that lived in marginalized communities. So fast forward, I'm a senior in high school, and in February 26, 2012, Trayvon got killed. And I felt like part of me died too. And at that moment, I gave my life to the movement. So all of these emotions, compassion, empathy, and anger was built up inside of me at the time, like a pressure cooker when I first, my first day of class, transferring into Dr. Adejumo's class. And I was very raw, and I didn't have any direction. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I was very raw, and I didn't have much direction. So I wanted to get involved. I didn't know how. And I asked Dr. Adejumo, how could I get involved? If you know anything about Dr. Adejumo, if you want something to do, he's going to give you something to do. And at the time, the issue was getting the African American Studies program into the department. And he told me how to do it, but not only did he tell me how, what the steps need to be done, he educated me on the issues. He taught me why, like these injustices were happening. And not only that, he taught me how other injustices were interconnected. And that was so profound to me because at that moment, I didn't really know why things were the way they were. I always thought that issues that were happening in my community were very self-evident, but I couldn't tell you why. So that education really fueled my orientation towards the liberation struggle. So a little bit after that, I got involved with student government, which was interesting. I helped found Inspire Party, and I'm really glad to see that it's still doing well. I was actually at the elections yesterday, and I asked to take a picture with all the people of color, and I'm gonna ask the same thing of y'all. We should all take a picture, because y'all are beautiful, and people of color are just beautiful in general. And more than half of the party was people of color. And I just couldn't help but think that I had a little bit of influence, right? The things that I've done in this university after the education that I've gotten from Dr. Adejumo and other mentors and professors at this institution really gave me the direction that I needed to be a leader in the larger movement with a capital M, right? If it's not just Dream Defenders, which I was also involved in, if it's not just the movement for immigrants' rights, reproductive rights, it gave me an opportunity to thrive in this environment, to kind of know how to navigate these systems of oppression, how to navigate whiteness, right? And I'm so incredibly grateful for it. So the biggest movement I was really involved in was the No Law IBC movement for the two houses. And that was really interesting. I was a transfer student. I didn't know anybody on the committee when I was selected. I didn't even know why I was selected. I was some guy, right? I just applied and they put me in this position of influence for no other reason besides, I think, to sort of manipulate me. But like I said about injustices that seem self-evident to me, when they wanted to make that U-shaped building, I didn't know why it was wrong. I just thought we should have two houses. And I don't know what really set off the conversation between in the committee that first night where they were giving us proposals. I know I was already interrogating why we should have the two houses. I think Chris was the one to be just flat out say it, yo, we should just have two houses. But that really just set off a chain reaction that was very beautiful. It wasn't always pretty in the discussions and in the conversations. But every time I pass University Avenue and I see those two houses, I get so overwhelmed with joy and emotions because we came together. We didn't even know each other. We didn't have to work together. Y'all didn't know me. And you trusted me to be a part of something that I didn't even know the history of until Dr. Adejumo educated me, right? So while I'm in Iowa, right? I'm in Iowa working for the Sunrise Movement. We were trying to turn out young people to nominate a president that's gonna do something around climate change, right? And Iowa's super white. It's the whitest state ever. And I didn't have any community there. And I was so far away from home, I felt so disconnected. And it was around the time Atiana Jefferson died. They killed her in her home. And I felt so lost. And I was what am I doing here? There was how is this gonna help people in my community that are dying, not even in the streets, in their own home? And then I turned into the NAACP had this program, I guess, on white fragility. And Dr. Adejumo was speaking. And I remember watching it. And it all like came into focus for me. And like even when I'm like 17 miles away, like 17 hours away, I still find myself listening to the teachings of like this program. And I remember one thing that you said, and this is the orientation that I always bring to my volunteers: there's no community without unity, and vice versa. I say it every time. After every meeting, when we're shedding, like when we're occupying an office, whether we're like facing like a politician, like I always bring it back, because like at the end of the day, if we get a Green New Deal, it's not about saving the planet, right? This isn't about like trees, it's not about like water, it's about collective humanity, it's about liberation, and like how we're gonna treat each other. And this is the orientation I've gotten right here at the University of Florida. And the future that I like and picture, like it might be hard to like see it, so I'm gonna invite you to like close your eyes. I want you to think about your loved ones. Picture your family. Picture your community and other people you know. Some you don't. Now imagine living in a society where there are no wars, where you don't have to worry about climate change, there's no prisons. We use the money that we fund incarceration and wars, and we use that to fund parks and education, to erase poverty, where you have the ability to be who you want. Now open your eyes. Remember what you saw, how you felt. This program gave me the focus to fight for that future. We talk about like Blue Key and all this other stuff, like none of that stuff matters. What matters is like what's in this room. It's about people. And like I personally want to thank, like there are a lot of people I need to thank in this room, but like specifically I want to thank Dr. Adejumo. I remember I wasn't always a good student. A lot of my professors can be like, yeah, I agree, Wally, you were not a good student. But wow, why am I so emotional? I don't know where I would be right now if it wasn't for you. I was so caught up in so many things here. I mean, there's so much stuff to do. And like I said, you gave me the orientation. And when I have like volunteers in Iowa who are regurgitating the things that you taught me. That's what the movement's about, and I thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. My name is Chris. I'm a second-year medical student at the University of Miami. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. I graduated from UF in 2018 with a bachelor's in microbiology and a minor in women's studies. And I have some similarities with my political development, like Wallace just shared. We have a lot of overlaps in our stories, and we co-organized together a lot on campus. My relationship with the African American Studies program can be put very well with a quote by Assata Shakur that I'm going to read. She said in her autobiography, she wrote, "No one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. Nobody is going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that that knowledge will help set you free." And that knowledge that will help set us free, I got from the African American Studies program, from the staff and faculty in the program, many of whom I had informal relationships with. I didn't take a lot of classes with the program because I was a microbiology major and I was trying to be pre-med, and it was like so many hours in the day. But I built relationships with these folks, and they helped me develop politically and personally in ways that continue to inform who I am today and the kind of physician that I want to be in the future. I think one of the biggest things that I learned in my time here with the African American Studies program was this definition of love that Bell Hooks talks about in All About Love in her book, where she kind of recharacterizes love not as a noun but as a verb, as a practice, as a willful action that requires choice and a commitment to somebody else's spiritual growth. And that kind of love was what I received while I was here at the University of Florida from the African American Studies program, staff, faculty, and students. And that kind of love is the love that I think we have to practice when we organize, when we build social movements, and every single day when we're on the highway, when somebody cuts you off, when we're on the street. It's a daily practice, and it's hard, but we have to do it. And that's what I learned here. In addition to that, one of the biggest things that I experienced with the African American Studies program was a lot of support during a time of backlash that I want to talk about, because a lot of times we see the end products of organizing and social movements, and we don't see what happens behind the scenes and the effects that organizers experience from institutional backlash. And I experienced a lot of institutional backlash at my time here at UF. And I know a lot of other people haven't had the opportunity to speak about it. And there's a lot of power in telling stories, because somebody in the audience might be experiencing something similar, or they might experience something similar in the future, and they know with my story that they're not alone in this, and that they too can get through it. So as I was organizing with Wallace and a group of 15 Black and Latinx students for 2 independent houses for the Institute of Black Culture in La Casita, we had a lot of confrontations with administration. They had this plan all along to build one building after they had neglected the institutes and eventually condemned them because they were deemed unsafe. They came out with this plan to build one multicultural center, which we thought invalidated their respective histories, right? Because they have different histories that are important and can't be erased. And it was an act of violence. It was gonna combine all the people of color into one little building and just call it a multicultural center. And it would be easier for the university to surveil us, right? We're moving into surveillance capitalism right now, and that was gonna happen. And so we stood up to them with a lot of different tactics: petitions, teach-ins, meetings that were intense. People would be crying. One time I called the vice president of student affairs a white supremacist, and she didn't like that. Somebody had to say it. And eventually, we actually occupied a room, a decision-making meeting, where they were gonna decide the final design. We had to push for both designs. We had to push for minutes and attendance to be posted on the website. We had to push for everything to be recorded. We had to push to be in the room. We had to push for certain people not to be in the room, who shouldn't have been in the room, or who shouldn't even work here. We pushed for so many things, and eventually we won. After we occupied the building, over 100 Black and brown students marched through the front of the Rights Union on a day of orientation, where all these parents were bringing their first-year students. And that was intentional, right? We were so creative.
Yeah, it was dope.
And all of that was co-organizing students, staff, and faculty, right? It wasn't just a student movement. So we did that, and there were police officers waiting for us, but nothing happened, thankfully. But there is a history of police violence on this campus, and not just this campus, but across the United States, right? If you haven't read about Kofi, okay, you'll talk, okay. Just a situation of horrible police violence that happened here. But we walked past the police, 100 students, into the committee meeting, and eventually cornered symbolically and physically these administrators into committing to the designs that we wanted. And they had been telling us for months that money was a problem, and so we did our own math, and we found out money was not a problem. They said the designs were not feasible, and then we got the architects to come up with the designs. And eventually in that meeting with all those students, the vice president of student affairs committed to finding more money. And eventually the budget from that project, those houses across the street, the final budget was over $9 million. When the project started, it was about $3 million before students protested. And they told us, that we were demanding too much. They told us that money doesn't fall out of the sky. Verbatim, those were their words. They told us that we had big egos and that we were just driven for our own self-reputations. They told us a lot of these little things that would get at you psychologically, right? And then there was the physical effect of organizing, because we had to be up at all kinds of hours, meetings all the time. But one day they voted and they decided to move forward with the design that we wanted, and so we had won. And that was a big win for us, and we were really happy. And those buildings stand there today because of our organizing. Right, and I want to make sure that that organizing is not understood as a specific instance in time, but as part of this longer tradition of resistance and organizing, what Cedric Robinson calls the Black radical tradition, what Dr. Kendi writes about in his book, The Black Campus Movement, and not just the Black Campus Movement, but the Black Power Movement, and the long tradition of Black students organizing on academic campuses. There is no like on and off moment of the movement that we were part of. And a few days after we won that, I got an email from the Dean of Students' office saying that I had a I had a mandatory conduct hearing to take place the next week. They had not checked my schedule or asked me anything. They just gave me a time and a date. And they said if I did not show up to this meeting, that I could face the following repercussions. And there was a bunch of bullet points, so long. It was like 10 bullet points. And it was some things I didn't even care about, like being banned from athletic events. I didn't go to that anyway. But there were some serious things, like being withdrawn from school or being withheld financial aid or getting a hold on your registration. And I actually, that week, my grandfather had passed away. My abuelo, who helped raise me, passed away 2 days sooner. And I was scheduled to take the MCAT, which is the medical school entrance exam, the week after that. And then I got this email basically threatening my whole future, while I was already at home grieving. And so the first thing I did was I screenshotted the email and I put it in our group chat with all the organizers that we were working with. It was a group of 15 of us, because those are the folks who I developed relationships with over the entire time. Those are the folks that I built this relationship of love that Bell Hooks talks about with. And in that moment, immediately, within 30 minutes, we had a plan. And we went to Walker Hall, where the program was based at the time, and we sat together, crowded in Miss Burney's office, and we problem solved. And within an hour, I had spoken to an attorney, and I had an appointment for the next Monday to meet with this attorney. And that Monday, I retained 2 attorneys, an excellent legal team, and I didn't have the means to pay for it, and we found a way to pay for it as a collective. And those attorneys showed up with me to the conduct hearing, and the university was unprepared for attorneys to show up. They were not ready, which was great, and they asked to reschedule the conduct hearing. And so they rescheduled it for like a week later. And at the time, my attorneys asked for all the information. What was the problem? Like what evidence did they have? What were they gonna charge me with? Because at the time they had not served me formal charges, but they were giving me all these threats. And they later on down the line, they said that it was a mistake, that they weren't supposed to be threatening me with these backlashes without providing charges. But the root of the conduct, of the potential conduct case is very interesting, and it's a huge lesson for folks in here to learn. And it was that 2 students who were on the advisory committee who never attended any of the meetings. They were actually the president of the Hispanic Student Association and the president of the Black Student Union. They went to the dean of Multicultural and Diversity Affairs office, same guy who still works here. And he was here earlier, but he must have stepped out. They went to him and they showed him messages that I had sent them the night before the decision of the 2 buildings. And the messages that I had sent them said that if BSU and HSA were to release statements that said that they were in support of these buildings the entire time of this 2 design shape, without clarifying who led the movement and that they were not part of it the entire time, that they would effectively be erasing the work of Black and Latinx students, many of whom were women, queer folks who invested so much time and effort and energy into this movement, and that act of releasing these letters, these statements of support for 2 designs, would be misleading, and we would be forced to release the attendance records that showed that those 2 students didn't attend any of the meetings. And they said that I was threatening to humiliate them and to basically bully them. And what I was really doing was telling them that we were gonna drop the facts, that y'all didn't show up, and you were gonna frame this as if it was something that you were in support of the entire time, when in fact the university and you were like this, and you were just doing it as an opportunist to try to benefit your own resume. In the end, it wasn't, their efforts weren't successful. We won, and the charges were dropped. And the individual characters in all of this are not as important as the overall ideologies at work, right? We can get mad at the guy, the dean of students for the Multicultural and Diversity Affairs, but if we do fall short and not understand the department or the structures or white supremacy or capitalism, racial capitalism, as Cedric Robinson writes about, and these distractions, diversity and inclusion and multiculturalism that preserve the institution and don't transform the institution, but instead drop a little bit of pictures and photos and flyers. If we don't challenge those things, then these systems are gonna reproduce themselves. So I want you to walk away from here with this story, not as these few characters who tried to harm this one student organizer, but as something that happens every day on campuses, in institutions that are not universities, and cities, and all around the world, because this is a global issue, right? It's not stopped by borders. And so hopefully this story was helpful for you all, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So I'm Yvonne Hinson, and my story is very different from theirs. But before I move into my story, I'm an old lady. I need to piggyback on his story or I'll forget. I'm the president of the University of Florida Association of Black Alumni. This is my last year. I'll be outgoing on June 30th. However, my first year as president-elect, I was on the advisory council for MCDA. Whole different staff. And people who actually supported your movement. And having heard students, I supported it too. And so when I reported back to that particular leadership for Black alumni, they wanted the one building, and they wanted to support the one building. And I did say to that group, of which the dean of him, whatever you called him, was there, that the students want 2 buildings. Now, that entire staff who supported 2 buildings are either fired, some dead.
Dr. Foster?
They're not here, or blackballed. Just so you know. Now that I understand what it is you want to know, I made a list while y'all were talking. So I graduated in 1965 from Lincoln High School, all black high school. And I came in here today not knowing what the heck I'm coming to. I was invited a little late to sit on this panel. And my story's very different. When my classmates were going away to school, I had home obligations. I had to stay here. And I took a full-time job at the University of Florida. I always wanted to be a Gator, so that was my entrance, working at the University of Florida full-time in an office at Tigard Hall. First black in Tigard Hall that wasn't cleaning. So I had, to model a lot of things that I had to learn how to model because I had grown up in an all-black culture. But I moved very quickly, and I was able to get classes free. When you work for the university, you can get classes free. I took one science class because I thought I wanted to be a nurse. Got a D and decided, no, that's not my calling. So I was advised to take, I just decided I think I'll take a class in education. Foundations of Education, I remember it well. Very open-minded liberal teacher. Dressed just like the students, very, like I said, open-minded. We had classes at campfires and at his house. And he taught me that I had the intelligence, the wit, and the brilliance to do whatever I wanted to do. And he taught us all that. And of course, they're all white, I'm black. I didn't think there were any other black students here. I found out much later there were, but there were very few. But they were here. I just never saw them. About that next fall, Santa Fe Junior College opened up. It opened up downtown in an old Buchholz building. And I took my first full-time college classes at Santa Fe Junior College as a full-time student. And so I did most of that in the late afternoon and at night. Finished Santa Fe and was so excited to become a full-time Gator. And the College of Education. I went straight through, got my master's. They offered it to me, they paid for it. By then, though, a lot of blacks were coming, and I mean a lot. They were in graduate school, they were in law school, they were everywhere, medical school. And it was a good feeling. I was in class with blacks. We could study together. I felt, as you say, a community. Didn't have that before. Before, you know, I had to demand an education. You're gonna teach me, I'm here. I'm over here, I have a question. It just wasn't an easy road to hoe. But I made it through. I made it through, and it got a lot easier because after the revolt, kind of like you're describing at Taggart Hall, where they went in and locked down the president and his office, and that's kind of how African American Studies came to be. Even though I didn't know it was here, a classmate told me, there's a class here in African American Studies, and it's almost full of white people.
Ain't not much changed since then.
Oh, really?
Not much.
Anyway, more things changed, more they stay the same. Needless to say, I'm glad to be a Gator. It opened a lot of doors for me. I got recruited out of Florida to go teach in New York. I learned everything I know about teaching from New York, and that is a mighty lot. I was a great teacher. I moved to Miami and moved up real fast because I knew so much about education. I got all that here. White teachers who I demanded to teach me, and black and open-minded white teachers. I got what I came here to get. And I feel like I still have it. Sometimes I forget, but I think I still have it. Let me tell you a few things, though, now about activism since I've been in the Black Alumni Association. So I was told while I was on advisory council about the student enrollment decline. You brought that up. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. You know, I just sat here and let God lead me. So about the time I learned about the decline in enrollment, I remember we were almost at 10% here. We were almost at 10%, and I found out about the decline in student enrollment and joined a group of people who started in clandestine meetings, shall we say, about it and what we can demand from the president. And we wrote a letter that I signed and other people demanding certain things that we do about enrollment. Now, I will tell you a few things that went on, but right now I want to tell you tomorrow, since I've been president, we've been hosting black student recruitment conferences, and we'll have one tomorrow. We have almost 300 people showing up from all over the state of Florida, all black, to teach them how to be a Gator. They will learn how to get financial aid. They will learn what their GPA needs to be like, what their essay needs to look like, yada, yada, yada. We've been doing this 4 years, the Black Alumni. We asked the president to do certain things to help us. At first, he didn't believe that we had a decline in enrollment. And like you say, I had to show it to him on his own website. We've gone from almost 10% down to whatever number that is.
5.7.
5.7. I remember having a Gator gathering, and one of the alumni came and said there were as many black people here as some HBCUs at one time. Ooh. That's right, not so today. We can make this happen. I don't know why I can't get Gainesville engaged. We got kids and their parents coming here from all over the state of Florida. Not Gainesville. But that's okay, they black. And we welcome them, and I gotta figure out, after this, how do I get my own community engaged? They got the best university in the nation right here. I gotta figure out how to get our people engaged. So I told you about I Like to See the thing and the student enrollment. I want to tell you one more activism thing we've done you may not know about. You know how BCC and FAMU has the festival, classic, and a band player lost his life on the bus. You remember that? 2013. So we have black fraternities and sororities here now. You know, you didn't have that in my day, but you do now. And something happened, and they suspended all these black boys. Just, I said, oh no. You're finna ruin their lives because you're scared about what happened on that bus. Let's try each kid individually and see what they've done. We were able to get these kids reinstated, almost every one of them, except one, because we told them they could not go back to the fraternity. They had to come here, get their degree, and go on back home. This kid demanded to stay in his fraternity, and he's the only one that they continued to suspend. But the rest of those boys, it was almost 20 kids. And these are things you don't know going on. All this stuff you do know going on. These are things you don't know going on. So if you don't get involved and get engaged in what you do know going on, you'll never find out what you don't know going on that you need to know. Right there.
Thank you so much to our panel. So now I just want to have just some general discussion before we move on to the solutions-oriented discussion back and forth from the crowd and the panel. And I definitely want to get the students that are here, because this is a training session, whether you know it or not. This is a training session as far as what we need to do moving forward. So just throwing some general questions out there, anyone on the panel can take this. I want to first start with the Kofi. And Sharon, if you could just give a summary of that and what your feelings were as far as going through that process of activism and fighting for that young man.
Okay, so I've been a part of protests since I came here, starting with BAM, when we took over the student government offices, asking for money for Black History Month, and it was successful. And I think it's important to understand that stuff has never stopped. We've been having these issues happen almost every year, every other year, where something is happening and it's time to organize. So anytime I get in formation, we've been in formation, okay? Because that's nothing new. It becomes a lifestyle for you. But first, you have to know your history. You have to know structures. You have to know institutional racism. You have to know how to organize. And these are things you get in a degree with African American studies, so you can understand and learn how to do these things. I was also, while I was here, president and vice president of the Association of Black Faculty and Staff. And at the time, I believe, Yvonne, you were a commissioner? At the time? Yeah, so I got a call to speak on what she was talking about. I got a call because from the NAACP president, because she wasn't getting any traction from some assistance with some brothers here to assist these young men. And it was over 20 men in 2 different fraternities and sororities who were accused of hazing. And most of them were juniors and seniors, and they wanted to expel them. They came on campus and they arrested these young men on campus. Some came to their classrooms. They took pictures of them at the set. If y'all don't know what the set is, it's Turlington Hall area. We call it the set. But the set, they came to the set and took mug shots of them. They came to their jobs off campus. They came to their apartments, and they arrested these young men like they had all kind of criminals. And then they trespassed them from campus. and it was their senior year. It was during maybe midterms, exams. So they weren't able to come take their exams. Okay, so they called and we had an emergency meeting. I called an emergency meeting that night with the faculty and staff, black faculty and staff, and of course, somebody came from student affairs. She was no longer here, okay, and was invited by somebody who was sent, a gatekeeper, let's just be honest, a gatekeeper, who was sent by a gatekeeper to come see what we were doing to organize. Now I had to check the gatekeeper and let him know, don't you ever invite anybody to our meetings without my permission in the beginning, but you got 5 minutes to give your presentation. And then she needs to go. We're having a meeting. And then we had a meeting. And then we had several. And then we reached out to Yvonne, who brought her ability to the table. And she came with a lawyer.
And Cecil.
And Cecil. And came. And then we had meetings to protect these young men, because we had 20 young brothers who were supposed to graduate who were not going to graduate, and we had to have conversations. And the first thing I asked is to pull the data. I want to see the student judicial data by race, by crime, by penalty, and all of that. And then you explain to me the disproportionate statistics that we see here so we can address this as a group. And then we made solutions longhand to happen, but we were able to protect these young men. But it was almost a whole semester worth of protection that we had to do to make sure they walked. They had them on CNN News. They put them on CNN News. They put the story on CNN News to attack them. So then you had that. So that's some of the details behind what she was talking about. And then we had Kofi. Kofi was a graduate student that lived in Corey Village, where I lived when I was here as a student. And he was in his home in Corey Village as a grad student, and somebody made a call to 911, and they showed up with a SWAT team and kicked in his door and shot this man in the face. Okay, and the man who shot him was a UPD officer who used to work for Gainesville Police, I believe, and had been in trouble for harassing the neighbors in the Porters community, the black people in the Porters community, and then ended up with a job at UPD. And the reason it came to our attention was because residents of Corey Village watched it happen and were so concerned about it happening that they contacted and said we need, and then Dr. Nunn was at that meeting. We had the meeting at Wilhelmina Johnson Center, the first organizing meeting for that off campus. And we had to fight for him with a coalition of people too. And so it's been one thing, and then Nola Bisita was another one. There were the racial incidents on campus with the blackface parties, and it wasn't just one party. It was several parties, okay, every semester. And then we had the Richard Spencer, unfortunately, come, and we organized, and we went out there for that. And you always see some of the same, but you're gonna see Dr. Nunn at every march. Getting this started, but you'll see some of the same people doing the work. And I want to say, one of the things I want to say, so this is nothing new and it's not going to stop. That you have to be committed to it, to a lifetime of commitment, and it does come for a sacrifice. Now, most black staff members, we're going to talk about how we treat the most disenfranchised among us, but most black staff at the University of Florida will retire 30 years later with the same title they started with. I paid a price for assisting these students. I paid a price for speaking out about injustice. I paid a price, and I'm talking about a price that affected my ability to take care of my family, because I'm head of household. Okay? I never And the entire time was at UF, got a title change, even though it was requested by every director I worked for. When you think about retiring 30 years, let's break down the money, because one of the things I always say is real diversity and inclusion, since that's our little target word now, is in all of the numbers. Not just the acceptance numbers, the retention numbers, the promotion numbers, the salaries, the resources, the budgets, the honorariums, all of the resources, promotion, recruitment. So if for 30 years I can't get an upgrade in my position, how does my retirement package look? Over 30 years, according to my peers. I sent a spreadsheet to the dean's office with my last request showing the disparities in the amount of money that I was making according to my peers. And on the bottom end, it was like 20-some thousand less, and on the top end, it was 60,000 less than what my peers were making. That's unacceptable at this great university. So there will be a sacrifice. There are some of us who get to participate in special Negro syndrome, is what I call it. And then there's some of us who choose there is no choice. But it gave me the skill set to be able to fight. It gave me the skill set how to take their language and use it against them. I now work for an organization called the Council on Library Information Resources. And in 1 year, I changed my whole life. Something I should have been able to do here. But I'm here, and I will say one last thing about this group called No La Bisita. It was a blessing being able to work with them. Each and every one of them, that was the most phenomenal, and I've been with a lot of organizations. I've been with a lot of my circle is fierce. My circle is off the chain, but this group, you guys are gonna, 20 years from now, you're gonna look at these young men and women, and I said it before, I'm gonna say it again. Their organizing ability, their commitment, the intelligence in that group, the collective talents that they had and built upon, the oratory skills was phenomenal. And you're gonna go back in history and you're gonna be like, whoa, that was one powerhouse of team. I already know it. I saw it then. So I guess I want you to realize that, one, it never stops. The organizing never stops, the work never stops, and it will come. You have to decide what side of history you want to be in, and I always want to be on the right side of history.
Leave the mic in the middle.
All right, so now I want to go ahead and continue the real talk. And first and foremost, before I continue the real talk, I want to first of all echo Sharon's sentiments about No La Bisita first and foremost. The men and women involved with that, the students, Adebola and Aya, and we must give thanks to them. Like Sharon said, you would never see a group like that. I mean, those kids, they was just built different. They was just built different. Or maybe, I don't know. They was just built different. And, you'll never see a group like that again. Well, I don't know. Maybe the university will accept a group like that again. I don't know. We know the statistics with the enrollment. But I want to give an opportunity for the students. The students in here, please stand up for a second. All the students in here, undergraduate students, please stand up. Okay, great. So what I want to do now is and we're not going to end this session until we at least get. It's 4:05 now, right? So we got until 4:30. So I need you guys, one of you to come up and take the microphone, and we need to have some question and answers between the students here and asking questions as far as activism and that type of thing. And before I do, the one thing I want to really address that I see what's going on, and some of you elders might not know, because you might not come back to the university as much, but there has been a grip of apathy. There's been a grip of apathy going on around here. And so this is a tremendous opportunity for our students to get some firsthand knowledge from the people that came before them, whether they want to go all the way back to the 1960s or you want to come on back to 2017, 2018, 2016. William was involved heavily he didn't say it as much, but I'm going to talk for him a little bit, but he was very involved with getting through the diaspora movement, getting the conversation started, or not started, but because it's been a conversation, but continuing the conversation about the African American Studies program becoming a department. You heard from everyone else as far as their involvement. So without further ado, somebody come and grab the microphone, one of you students, and what are your questions that you have from the panel?
Hi, my name is Mayura. I am a second year here. I'm fairly new, kinda. But I just want to know, where can we get started? Because I see a lot of the things that every single one of you have been saying, but you guys kind of speak on it like it was the past. But I honestly see it here still, honestly. So my question is, where can we get started? What can I do? How can I help? Just what can I do?
If you don't mind me asking, what program are you in?
Well, I want to double major in African American Studies, but right now I'm health education major.
Health education major. And who's the dean?
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Trust me, when I started, I had no idea who the dean was, provosts, VP, president, maybe. So I felt very out of the loop. I would say my advice to you would be to get to know the structure. We had, you still have that course, The Wire?
Yeah, I'm teaching this semester, actually.
The Wire. The Wire, yeah. So one of the things you'll learn in The Wire is you got to know the board game, and you got to know the rules of that game to be able to navigate it. Learning how to navigate what the pieces are, who the queen is, who the king is, who the pawns are that are sacrificial. Understanding that and how to move about that board, very beneficial. And just start scheduling meetings. Remember, these individuals work for you. You pay, what's tuition up to, $45,000, $50,000 a year? Yeah. Something like that?
Yeah, I pay honestly.
There you go. So they work for you. Their paycheck's coming out of your pocket. So they're beholden to the students. So just schedule a meeting, start the conversation. That's my advice.
Yeah. You go down the line. Yeah.
Where to start? Get involved, take some classes. I'm glad that you're an AASP major. Because if you don't understand what's happening to you or around you or what happened in the past, you definitely will be a victim of it. Empower yourself, and then reach out to some faculty and get some mentoring.
Yeah, I agree. Also, go out in the community and talk to community leaders. Yeah, I think that would be the easiest thing to do. There is a culture of just staying inside like 13th and University, like Dr. Adejumo said, but you don't really know what's going on around you. They're like, I don't know if Miss Faye's still here, or if she come back, you talk to her, she'll tell you what's going on, how you can get involved. Talk to Dr. Adejumo. We talked about like a lot of stuff today. If you want to learn about your history, like stop in the spot. There's like literally archives on archives of like history that is just like waiting for you to like dive into, to like figure out like what happened in the past, like how to learn those structures and like the protests and the organizing of the past, and like how to apply that now once you've gone and talked to like, you know, community leaders about like what to do.
Angela Davis said you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. And so the biggest answer that I want to give you is to start with your imagination. And when you see or you feel something that doesn't sit with you right, when you see something that doesn't look okay, explore that emotion and figure out what's wrong with the situation here. When you're maybe the only woman in the classroom, the only black student in the classroom, when all of your faculty are white, when your financial aid package looks atrocious, all of those are issues that we have to sit with and figure out, like, what is causing this? What are the structures, the systems that shape this? And how can I imagine a future that's radically different? What do I deserve? What do we deserve? And now how can we make it happen? And then that part is more organizing. That comes with things like power analysis. You figure out who's in charge of this certain decision. You trace it up. It might be an administrator. You find out who that is, and that you find a collective, a group of people, an affinity group, as we call it in organizing, who have a similar goal and probably similar values. And then you start planning strategy, and you think of different tactics. And so we created videos because we had folks in our group who were like media people. We had a Facebook page. We created flyers. We had a teach-in. There's so many different tactics. You can just pull up on their offices. I would bombard the vice president with emails, public records requests. Like there's such a endless amount of tactics that you can do once you figure out the goal and who you want to get there with.
So it sounds like you're saying nothing's changed.
Yeah.
That's disheartening. And it's messing with my spirit right now. However, let me just say that you're Gators. No matter what color you are, wherever you came from, the one thing you guys have in common, you're Gators. And I'm going to tell you that Gatorhood and that spirit of excellence that I know they plant in you is still there. You take that spirit and stir it up because it's there. And your own calling will tell you to move beyond something greater than yourself. That you see something, do something. And I don't know what that is. It could merely be writing a letter to somebody. Your own intelligence, creativity, inspiration, motivation. More than that, though, the level of excellence that you've got inside of you from just being on this campus, and I know it to be so, will inspire you and drive you to do something to change humanity. And I don't mean just you, because I was here by myself, black, and there were white people that joined me in the quest for equality in the classroom, to make sure people treated me with respect in the classroom. I'm alone. There's something about the spirit of being a Gator. Oh, I still got 10 minutes. I didn't even know I was being timed. Where was I? There's really something about being a Gator that's different from any other place, in my opinion, and I am a Gator, on earth. That you can do whatever you need to do to change the situation that's in front of you. You already have the ability, you've already been taught the skills, and you had to have something within you to come here and last here and become a Gator. You can do it. And if you don't do it, who will?
Just some housekeeping items real quick. The last shuttle will be leaving at 4:30 from Smathers to return guests to their cars. So just wanted to make that tidbit. So with that said, Kiara, you had a question?
Yes. Hi, my name is Kiara Thompson. I'm a second-year African American Studies major. You spoke about Gainesville not really being involved, and I'm just wondering, is there like an invisible boundary that's put between the Black community and the University of Florida? And if it is, how can we as Black students work towards moving it?
So one of the people helping me organize this student recruitment conference, she goes out and mentors into the high schools. She's at GHS and Buchholz. As busy as she is, I don't know how she has time to do it. I've said this to the president. I really think and I think they had it during our day. I don't remember. There is a community project component where you're sent out into the community to do something to change the conditions of the community, and you get a grade for it. I've been recommending this. I don't know what I have to do to make it happen, but I believe you should have a project where you find a problem in the community and you write a proposal to a teacher. I'm just telling you what I think I remember. And you write a proposal to a teacher and he approves it and walks over it with you, what you need to do for solutions. They give you the resources that you need to implement, and you can do it in a group or individual and get a grade.
And I'll just say on that front, as the students intimated, I used to teach a course called Mentoring at-Risk Youth. That course was actually developed well before me. Before I taught it was Dr. Stephanie Evans. And then Dr. Stephanie Evans, so I want to give acknowledgement to that. Dr. Hilliard Nunn, as she said, she started here in the community and kind of doing, in her own way, kind of bridging that gap between the university and the community. But I think it's on two fronts, Kiara, I know you got to go, but it's on two fronts. For one, I believe, first of all, you have to have the faculty to be able to want to step outside of that ivory tower and want to be able to do the work and actually have because this university doesn't mandate faculty to go out there and do their classes in the community, right? That's just something if you're motivated to do, that's just something if you want to do. But unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but however you want to take it, the university is trudging towards the top 5 now. It's research based, and so many of the faculty now that's being recruited don't really see the point in really doing that, right? At least from my experience. Other people may feel differently. And then second of all, it comes down to also the students as well. Now, something that the elders might not be clued into, but the issue is, because some of you, I wonder, well, why is it that it's first of all, so little students here? And second of all, what is going on with the apathy and the involvement? I'm going to finish up. The second point of it is that a lot of the students that are coming in now have 45, 60 credit hours. They're already coming in with an associate's degree. You see what I'm saying? So there's kind of a churn and burn type of thing as far as, so students aren't staying 4 and 5 years anymore. They're getting out in 2.5 years. So in addition to not having faculty push them to go out into the community, having projects for them to do and that type of thing outside of African American studies. I know women and gender studies have some professors who do that, but outside of that, then you bring it in the student population who don't really see the importance of that. Then it becomes an issue. You have social media. These kids aren't as social anymore as far as interactive, that type of thing. I might not supposed to be saying this, but I don't care. So you just have a lot of these things going on and a lot of these factors. So I want to give Wally and then the last word to our elder sister over here, and then we're going to wrap it up.
So I will just say I am also a community member. I grew up in Gainesville. Like I said before, I transferred to the University of Florida. So I'd like to speak a little bit about the wall. I went to Santa Fe High School and Gainesville High School, and I would always like pass the University of Florida, and like for a while I didn't even know what it was, right? And then when I found out like, oh, that's the University of Florida, this is where the Gators play, because everyone in Gainesville is a Gator fan, or they're not really a Gainesvillian. Yeah, I always felt like it wasn't a place for me. And no one ever came into my classroom to talk about like higher education. I never saw like a student like come to speak to us. Even when I like went to Santa Fe College, no one talked to us. Like nobody came to like speak to me. And that's where most of the community is. They're at Santa Fe College. And today I was I spoke at Santa Fe College in a meeting, and I told them how they could like get involved. And people are like hungry for it, right? Like people like want to get involved. People like want to like aspire to go to this university. I tell all the black people maybe they should consider HBCU, but you know, like people like they want to like hear from people out that go to UF. So I don't know like where like the solution. I mean, we've heard some solutions, but like speaking from my standpoint, like as like a person who never thought the university was from the like for them or my community, I think that's like what a lot of people in the community feel, and like that's why they don't like really like talk about the University of Florida, because like one, like I don't know, when you're in poverty, like you're not really thinking about like speaking to your child, like you want them to succeed, but like teaching them all the like nuances of like college applications is like lost. And that's something that like we all have the ability to like teach a young child, so why aren't we doing it?
Right. All right, let's get the microphone to us. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just real briefly, my daughter went to Gainesville High School and graduated from Gainesville High School and was recruited probably by so many universities across the country, but never received anything from UF. Never, so she never applied to UF.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Vivian Filer, and I am a University of Florida graduate in 1972. And let me tell you something, children. You've got to take some onus here. Those of you that's in the room have interest. There are so many African-American students on this campus who don't lift their eye when they see people like me walk by. I may be the very one to help them, but they don't even acknowledge my presence. I used to walk, I taught Santa Fe 26 years. I'd walk across the campus trying to get eye contact. That might be a kid who needs to come to my office. They don't even give eye contact. So let's start in your circle here on the campus and talk about what it means to be an African-American student on a campus that's virtually white all over. I came here right out of segregation. I right out, worked night shift, had 2 children, and graduated from this University of Florida. But I didn't have very many people to seek, but I sought them. We want to help you. We, the community, want you. You're ours. Your teachers on this campus want you. You're theirs. So start there. Everything you've said is good, but take some onus and try to get your peers to remember they're black. That's a big story. They remember they're black.
Thank you so much, sister. I think that is a lesson that unfortunately the people aren't in this room to hear that. They need to remember that they black.
I have just one.
You have one more? Okay, sorry. Okay.
Thank you. As a student, there's one thing you really need to stop doing, and that's calling home and complaining. You need to start praying. You need to start thinking about what brought you here, what kind of student you were when you came, how you were in high school, and start doing that, because you did well. But look at you now. You've got to be strong. You've got to find out who you are, where you are, and as Sister Fowler said, there are people around you. You keep ignoring the people, they're going to ignore you. And then you're going to find yourself on social media all the time, texting, Instagramming, and all of that stuff. And then you don't have time to study. And then you'll be kicked out. So watch it, okay? Take care of yourself.
All right, thank you so much. And with that said, it's 4:30 now. You guys are dismissed, but thank you so much to our panelists, first and foremost. Round of applause for our panelists, please. And so now I'm going to turn the microphone over to...
That means we are dismissed?
Dr. Ortiz. Okay.
Let's give another round of applause to a wonderful panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Adejumo. So a couple of quick announcements. So Dr. Patricia Hilliard-Nunn wants to talk to us about what's going to happen tomorrow, and we'll also do a recap before we start the film. Okay, but remember, we have a shuttle. The last shuttle over is leaving in just a couple minutes. So if you need to get to the parking area and want to get the shuttle, please kind of make your way to the front. But please remember, at 5 p.m. we have an amazing documentary which is going to highlight a lot of the things the panel talked about in terms of the history of student activism. So we'll reconvene at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Just about tomorrow, excuse me. Just want to remind everybody tomorrow, well, first, the film starts at 5. We're going to have a little discussion right now, right? Oh, no, we won't, okay. Just the film starts at 5, but right here in this room. Tomorrow, we start again at 10:30 at the African American Studies offices with those who want to go on the tour, or really it'll be informal. You can see the new facilities in room 1012 Turlington Hall. That will go, there'll be some refreshments for breakfast, and then we are gonna walk outside to Turlington Plaza where we will have the unveiling of the historic marker at noon. After that, at 12:45, we will walk across the street from there, from Turlington Plaza to the Florida Auditorium, where we will have the community celebration and where we will formally recognize some of the founders of African American Studies and some of the people who made it possible for us to be here. So hope to see you then. Then we'll have a little reception after that. Thank you.